A very good morning to one and all present here. Myself, Dr. Richa Mehra, and the topic for the today's discussion is cardiopulmonary thoracic dissection and autopsy. Starting with the term autopsy, auto means oneself and opsy means to see. So autopsy as a term means to see oneself. It is a detailed examination of the corpse in order to know the cause of death, nature of death, and to evaluate for the presence of any disease. Now, talking about the history of the cardiopulmonary autopsy, it started in the mid 16th century when postmortem examinations were done to note the anatomy and the physiology of the cardiovascular system. This is a beautiful painting of 1945, Diego Rivera Francisco at the Institute of Cardiology, Mexico City. It shows the portraits of three great personalities who have done tremendous work in the field of cardiopulmonary autopsy. A here is Versailles. He is holding a human heart and dissecting it. B shows Harvey. He's palpating the superficial blood vessel. And Morgagni is in this painting C. He's pointing towards the sternum of the person
whom shows all the three personalities go there with the
point.
Yeah, point.
Ma'am, A is Versailles. He is dissecting a human heart.
What is the pronunciation of?
Versailles.
Versailles. What is R? Silent? Harvey and Morgagni.
B is Harvey and C is Morgagni. Now moving forward to the external examination in case of cardiopulmonary dissection, the important points to note are cyanosis, which is the bluish discoloration of the skin. It is of two types, central cyanosis and peripheral cyanosis. Central cyanosis is seen in the tongue, tip of the nose, nails, fingertips and toes, and it is seen in case of cardiac diseases and pulmonary diseases. Second is the peripheral cyanosis, which is seen in cases of shock, and it is noted in the extremities, upper and lower extremities. Then talking about second important point is edema. In case of cardiac diseases, there is presence of bilateral lower limb edema, which is of pitting type. And other types of edema can be seen like paraorbital edema in case of disease of kidney, and anasarca, which is seen in cases of anaphylaxis or malnutrition. Then there are non-pitting type of edema, which is seen in case of filariasis, also in cases of mixed edema. Then we have to look for the presence of other congenital anomalies externally. If it is a case of congenital heart disease, then we have to look the thorax, the symmetricity of the thorax, the presence of any injury mark or any scar mark, and whether there is any bulge seen. Then the chest wall is also examined for the presence of any deformity. After the external examination, we give the preliminary skin incision. To open the thorax and abdominal cavity, the preliminary skin incision can be I-shape, it can be T-shape or Y-shape or an I with a U on the top. After giving the preliminary skin incision, we dissect the skin and the muscles, but at this point, do not disrupt the intercostal muscles. Now, the important point here to look is to check for the pneumothorax, which can be done by two methods. First method, we fill a syringe with water, insert it in the intercostal space before or after reflecting the skin flaps. Then we aspirate, and if there is presence of air bubbles, it indicates pneumothorax. The second method is after reflecting the skin flaps, water is poured into the chest cavity, and then the chest is open underwater. Escape of air indicates the presence of pneumothorax. If there is any history of breast pathology, then there should be a detailed examination of the breast, which is done after removing the skin flaps from the inner side. After that, the abdominal skin and fat are reflected, and we note the presence of any fluid. We note down its volume, the color and appearance, and we collect the fluid for the biochemical, cytological, routine microscopy, and for the microbiological examination. Now to open the chest cavity, we disarticulate the sternoclavicular joint and then separate the rib cage by cutting through the costochondral junction, costochondral cartilage. First rib is kept intact initially. The another method is to take a lateral incision from the sternocleidomastoid muscle along the anterior axillary line. Then the anterior rib cage is detached and reflected. The intercostal muscles are now cut gently and superficially so that the underlying lungs are not damaged. Any kind of additions are to be noted and lungs pushed away from the parietal pleura. This is the image showing the opened up thoracic and the abdominal cavity. It is showing the coverings and the organs in their normal anatomical position. So here now we start the in situ examination, which is the examination of the coverings and the organs with their coverings when they are present at their normal position. What to look in the in situ examination of the pericardial cavity. First, we have to note down the position of the heart, which is noted down by the by the apex, whether it is pointing towards the left, that is levocardia, or to the right, that is dextrocardia, or in the center, that is mesocardia. The size of the heart is to be noted, whether it is hypertrophied or atrophied. We should also look at the pericardium, the layers, and whether there is presence of any petechial hemorrhages or any metastatic deposits to be noted. And the important point to be noted is the pulmonary embolism and the air embolism, which we have to check at this point. To check the pulmonary embolism, we palpate the pulmonary artery. If it feels like a cord, then it indicates the presence of pulmonary embolism. We give a Y-shaped incision in the pulmonary trunk, and if there is a presence of a thrombus, then we can see it as a grayish friable material. If we are not able to see, then we insert the little finger in the right and the left branches of the pulmonary artery. If there is a presence of pulmonary thromboembolism, then we can feel a firm feeling at the tip of the little finger. Second, we have to check about the air embolism. After opening the chest cavity, the aorta, it is ligated and the pericardial sac is cut open. Now we pour the water into the pericardial cavity, covering the heart completely. We take a scalpel and inside the right side of the heart chambers, or we can also inside the pulmonary artery with scalpel. If there is a scape of air bubbles, then it indicates the presence of air embolism. These two are very important if there is a history of a sudden death. It is a heart-lung block showing the right and the left lungs, and the heart in the center showing the right ventricle, left ventricle, arch of aorta, the arch arteries, descending thoracic artery, trachea, and also the pulmonary trunk. It is the heart-lung block which we get for the dissection. Now talking about the in situ examination of the pleural cavity and the lungs. In the pleural cavity, we should have to look at the pleura first, whether there is presence of any kind of inflammation or any tumor is there. Then we have to open the pleural cavity. We look at the pleural fluid, its volume, color, appearance, and then we collect it for all the biochemical, microbiological, as well as the cytological examination. Here we can see the lungs covered by the parietal pleura. These are the internal thoracic arteries which are seen above it. Then we have to note down the lungs, how they appear, whether they are collapsed or they are showing the miliary depositions, any kind of consolidations or hemorrhages, they all should be noted in the in situ examination. Now talking about the thoracic situs. The thoracic situs is determined by the bronchial tree, not by the lobes of the lung. The right bronchus, it is broader, shorter, and it is more in line with the trachea. So any kind of aspirated material, any kind of foreign body, it goes directly into the right lung. Chances are more that it will go towards the right lung. Then the left bronchus, it is longer, it is narrower, and it is more in angle with the trachea as compared to the right bronchus. After that, let us see the situs of the thoracic organs. These two are the abnormal conditions. First is situs inversus, and second figure we can see it is the situs ambiguous. In situs inversus, there is the mirror imaging of the parts. Here we can see It is the left lung, it is the right lung, and the left ventricle has gone towards the right. Uh, this is the right lung. This is the left lung. The left ventricle, it is gone towards the right side, and the right ventricle towards the left side. Here, the apex is pointing towards the right side. But in this condition, the connection between the vein and the atria and the ventricle and the artery, it is maintained. That is not disturbed. In case of situs ambiguous, there is an ambiguity in the position of the organ. Here we can see it is a one large ventricle, the common atria, and the truncus arteriosus is present. We cannot say whether it is a dextrocardia or whether it is a normal or it is situs inversus. So it is called as the situs ambiguous, seen in congenital heart diseases. After getting the heart lung block, we have to fix that. So for the fixation, we do the formalin perfusion method. After squeezing out all the blood clots, we clamp the arch vessels and cannulate one of the vena cava. Formalin reservoir is kept at the height of 25 to 30 centimeter, and then formalin is allowed to run through the tubings into the cannula, and it escape out through the aorta. After all the blood is washed out, we clamp the aorta, and when the lungs are well inflated, which can be seen by the shiny and smooth appearance of the pleura, we clamp the vena cava, detach the formalin tubings, and immerse the whole heart lung block in formalin for 24 hours. The importance of keeping this formalin reservoir at 25 to 30 centimeter height is that it maintains the pressure, and all the heart chambers and the lungs maintain their normal contour. This is the diagram showing the recirculation tank. It is a tank of formalin. The heart lung block is kept here and attached with this with the help of the cannula and the tubings. After that, the heart lung block is submerged in the fixative, that is formalin, and it is pumped up. So it is a type of recirculation tank. Similarly, we do the coronary arterial perfusion. For that, we clamp the arch arteries, insert the cannula into the thoracic aorta or one of the arch arteries, but we make sure that it is above the coronary arterial ostia. Now, the buffered formalin is allowed to run into the cannula from the height of 30 centimeter, and usually the process takes 10 minutes to complete. It also helps in maintaining the normal circular contour of the blood vessels. After fixation, we do the separation of the heart. For separation of the heart, first we look the parietal pleura, then we need to flip the heart upwards. This flipping is a difficult process when the heart is normal because of the pulmonary venous and pulmonary arterial connections. But this flipping becomes easy whenever there is a supra or infracardiac total anomalous pulmonary venous connection. So this point of flipping is very important and it should be very carefully done. Then we separate the heart from the lungs, first from the left side and then from the right side, and incise the pulmonary vasculature as close to the hilum of the lung as possible. Now we look at the systemic examination one by one, first about the cardiovascular system and then about the respiratory system. The cardiovascular system, we face two main problems in our country, ischemic heart diseases and the valvular heart diseases. The 5 points should be noted down before dissecting the heart is first we have to inspect, then probe, then we have to take the photograph, then dissect, and then finally we have to cut. This should be followed. Again, we see the external examination of the heart, the orientation, the appearance of the epicardial surface and the cardiac surfaces. Here we can see it is the first figure showing the anterior surface of the heart and second showing the posterior surface. On the anterior surface, most of the part of right ventricle is there, a small part of left ventricle, then arch of aorta, pulmonary trunk, and the right and the left atrial appendages are there, and the superior vena cava. On the posterior surface, most part of the left ventricle, a part of the right ventricle, the right and the left atrium, inferior vena cava, coronary sulcus, and the inferior vena cava. These all are present on the posterior aspect. Now, how to differentiate between the right and the left atrial appendages? The right atrial appendage, it is larger, it is like a broad-based triangle, and as compared to the left atrial appendage, which is in the form of a crooked finger and smaller. The right atrial appendage form most of the part of the anterior wall of the right atrium. Now we will see the coronary arteries and their dissection. There are two coronary arteries, the right and the left. The right coronary artery arises from the right side of the coronary sinus and goes towards the right side of the heart in the right atrioventricular sulcus, whereas the left coronary artery, after moving behind the pulmonary trunk, it get divided into two branches: the left anterior descending artery and the left circumflex artery. The left anterior descending artery, it supplies the anterior wall of the left ventricle, the anterior two-third of the interventricular septum, and the left circumflex artery supplies the lateral wall of the left ventricle. The right coronary artery, it supplies whole of the right ventricle, and when there is a right dominant heart, then this right coronary artery, it as a right posterior descending artery, it supplies the posterior one-third of the interventricular septum and also the posterior vessel surface of the left ventricle. Now, in this image, we can see it is the right coronary artery, the left circumflex coronary artery, and the left anterior descending coronary artery, which are branching from the left coronary artery. Here we can see it is the coronary sinus, the right side and the left side, from where the right and left coronary arteries arise. It is the anterior surface showing the course of the left anterior descending artery, the left circumflex artery, and the right coronary artery. And it is the posterior surface showing the posterior descending artery, the coronary sinus. How to dissect the arteries? To dissect the arteries, we take the serial cross sections, which are to be taken at 0.5 centimeter distance, and the degree of the stenosis should be noted, whether it is less than 50%, it is more than 50 to 75%, or it is more than 75%, which is the critical value. After that, the symptoms of the ischemic heart disease, they starts. And then note down the color and texture of any atheroma, whether it is fibrous type, fibrofatty, or fatty. We also have to look for any complications in the atheroma, which can be calcification or presence of thrombus, intraplaque rupture, or any hemorrhage. Now, in many cases, there is a calcified artery. If there is a calcified artery, then we excise the artery from its bed, we dissect it, and we keep it for decalcification. After that, we take the serial cross section of the artery. The methods for the dissection of the heart, most commonly used method is the inflow-outflow method or the Vercoes method. The other methods like the short axis method, four chamber method, long axis, and all these methods are rarely used nowadays. So we will see in detail about the inflow-outflow method. For the inflow-outflow method, 3 incisions are taken, each on the right side and on the left side. First, starting with the right side, the first incision, it is given in the middle of the right atrium, or we can also do it by placing a probe from the inferior vena cava to the superior vena cava and then opening the atrium along the probe. After that, after opening the right atrium, we look at the tricuspid valve. The Gross method to check whether it is normal is by using the 3 fingers. Whether it is accumulating the 3 fingers or not. The second incision, it is given just behind the right border of the heart from the right atrium to the right ventricle. And in this incision, the posterior leaflet of the tricuspid valve is cut. The third incision, it is given along the right ventricular outflow tract via the pulmonary valve, and the cusp of pulmonary valve is cut in this incision. Now moving to the left side, on the left side, the first incision, it is given at the position of the superior pulmonary veins, and the mitral, the left atrium is then opened up, and we look at the mitral vein, whether it is accommodating the 2 fingers or not. The second incision, it is given just behind the left border, cutting through the posterior left leaflet of the mitral valve to apical aspect of the left ventricle. The third incision, it is given from the anterior mitral leaflet and the wall of the left atrium to open into the ascending aorta. In case of valvular heart diseases like RHD, we cannot give 2 incisions to the mitral valve because of the presence of verruca vegetations. So, and we have to evaluate the valve. So in that condition, we do the mitral valve sparing technique, in which the third incision, it is given parallel to the left anterior descending artery in order to enter the ascending aorta. There is short access method. It is rarely done, but it is done in cases of ischemic heart diseases, because it exposes the largest surface area of the myocardium. We take a heart and place the diaphragmatic surface on a paper towel, and then we take the serial sections of the ventricles, uh, uh, and then the basal part, at last the basal part is opened by the inflow outflow technique only. Some points to remember. First, we remove all the blood clots and separate the arch of aorta from the ascending aorta, and then we have to take the weight of the heart, which is on an average in males it is 300 gram, in females it is 250 gram. That is 0.45% of the body weight. We also have to look at the appearance and size of the para-aortic lymph nodes, and for any myocardial pathology, the bread loafing is done. uh, the color, consistency, thickness, and the presence of any mural thrombi should be noted. In case of aortic aneurysm, we take the serial cross section of the aorta. Now, looking at the internal examination of the heart, we'll start from the atrium and go to the ventricle. First, the right atrium. The right atrium has a pacinated part showing the pactinate muscles, and a smooth part in which we have the opening of the superior vena cava, inferior vena cava, and the coronary sinus. And the opening of the coronary sinus has the Thebesian valve, whereas the opening of inferior vena cava, it has the Eustachian valve. Then there is a presence of a terminal crest which separate the pactinate part from the venous opening part. Looking at the left atrium, it is relatively featureless as compared to the right atrium, in which we can see there is an opening going towards the left atrial appendage, the opening of the pulmonary veins, upper and lower pulmonary veins, and it is the mitral valve. One important landmark to note in case of right atrium is the fossa ovalis and the limbus fossa ovalis, which is seen in the interatrial septum. Now, talking about the heart valves, the tricuspid valve, it has three leaflets, anterior, posterior, and septal. And the circumference of the heart valves, it is measured by using a string. In case of tricuspid valve, it is 3.8 to 4 centimeter. Then we have the mitral valve, which has a anterior and the posterior leaflets. Its circumference is around 2.8 to 3 centimeter. Then we have the tricuspid valve. It is having the it is having the two posterior and one anterior cusp. The aortic valve, it is having the two anterior and one posterior cusp. The circumference of the pulmonary valve is 2.3 to 2.3 to 2.5 centimeter, and of the aortic valve it is 2.2 to 2.2 to 2.5 centimeter. Now, what to check in case of the valves? Atrioventricular valves, we have to check the commissures, whether they are free or they are fused. Then the leaflets, the annulus, whether it is stenosed or it is normal, any kind of vegetations or verruca they are present, and the chordae tendineae, whether they are shortened or they are normal, the papillary muscles, whether they are normal, having hypertrophied or atrophied. Then we have to look at the atrial valves. We should see the commissures, the cusps, number of the cusps, and the annulus. Now, talking about the ventricles, the right ventricle, it is coarsely trabeculated, and the compact portion is thin, having a thickness of 0.5 to 0.7 centimeter. Whereas on the left side, the left ventricle, it is finely trabeculated, and there is a thick compact portion. The thickness is up to 1 centimeter. The outflow tract in case of right ventricle is also trabeculated, whereas in case of left ventricle, the outflow tract is smoother. Now we will see the appearance of the heart in case of some conditions. First, in case of rheumatic heart disease, if it is an acute condition, the epicardium shows fibrinous type of pericarditis, also called as the bread and butter type of the pericarditis. Then myocardium, it is soft, flabby, and it is dilated. The endocardium, we have to look the valves whether there is presence of any verruca or vegetations. If it is a chronic condition, the external appearance depends on the involvement of the valves, whether they are stenosed or incompetent or both. This is the image showing the fish mouth appearance of the mitral valve due to the commissural fusion. And here we can see the vegetations which are seen along the line of closure of the valve leaflet. Second, in infective endocarditis, the cause of acute infective endocarditis is Staph aureus, and the cause of subacute is the Streptococcus. In case of infective endocarditis, there is presence of prolonged type of pericarditis, and the valves, they are friable, bulky, destructive type, cause ulceration of the underlying leaflet, and they can go up till the myocardium also and cause the ring abscess formation. These are friable, so they can cause embolization to the other organs. These are the different conditions and the vegetations present in the valves in these conditions. First is the RHD. In RHD, the vegetations, they are small and they are present along the line of closure of the valve. In case of infective endocarditis, they are large, friable, and they involve the leaflet of the valve, but they can also involve the papillary muscle and the underlying myocardium also. Then we have the non-bacterial thrombotic endocarditis, in which the vegetation are small to medium bland, and they are present mostly along the line of closure of the valve. Then it is the Liebman-Sachs endocarditis, which is seen in the case of SLE. The vegetations here are small to medium and present on either or both side of the valve leaflets. Now, in case of valvular heart diseases, many times we replace the valves with the prosthetic valves. So these are of two types, mechanical type and the bioprosthetic type. Mechanical types are like ball and cage type, tilting disc type, which can be single leaflet or bileaflet, and bioprosthetic type, which are made from tissue from the pericardium, dura mater, or fascia lata, and they are preserved in glutaraldehyde. These are the different types of the mechanical and the bioprosthetic valve: bileaflet, monoleaflet, caged, ball type. Then bioprosthetic में stuntless, stunted, and transcutaneous type. It is the gross image of the heart showing the ball and cage type of the mechanical heart valve. Similarly, here we can see it is the bioprosthetic type. Now, what to see if there is a presence of prosthetic heart valves? In case of mechanical heart valves, we have to note down the size, the mobility of the valves. If it is restricted, then we have to look for the presence of any thrombus at the suture ring or at the apex of the cage, the site to be noted. The presence of infective endocarditis, which is very common in prosthetic heart valves, any kind of dehiscence or pannus formation. In case of bioprosthetic valve, we have to do the radiological examination and look for the cusp loosening or tearing, thrombus, infective endocarditis, fibrous sheathing, or calcification. Now talking about another condition, that is ischemic heart diseases. In case of that, the specimen preparation is done by coronary angiography, and perfusion fixation, as we have seen earlier, is done by 10% formalin at a pressure of 100 mm of Hg in order to maintain the contour of the vessels. Now we do the dissection of the arteries by taking transverse sections at 3 to 5 millimeter intervals, and we have to take the section from the portion having maximum narrowing and also from the normal portion. This is the image showing the left anterior descending artery and the degree of stenosis. It is showing complete blockage, so it is 100% stenosed, it is 75% stenosed, 50% stenosed. Here we can see the type of atheroma. It is fibrous type. It is both fibrous as well as fatty. Here we can see it is a fatty type of atheroma. This arrow in this figure indicates towards the presence of calcification. here also. And this image show the occlusive fresh red-brown color thrombus. And here we can see the presence of intraplaque hemorrhage. Now, examination of a heart having a bypass graft. Uh, for doing the dissection of a heart having the bypass graft, first we have to note down the length of the graft, the twistness and the tautness of that graft. And graft most commonly nowadays we take from the left internal memory artery and right internal memory artery. We can also take from saphenous vein or radial artery, but most commonly nowadays we take from the internal memory artery because of their proximity to the heart, and their patency is more. Then we take 3 to 5 millimeter intervals cuts to take the section, which has to be taken from the original artery of the patient, from the graft, and also from the site of anastomosis. We have to note down the narrowing and take the part which is having the maximum narrowing. Any thrombus is to be noted, and the sections are given for histopathological examination. Now, examination of myocardium. For the examination of myocardium, we do the bread loafing, which is done parallel to the atrioventricular sulcus, and the location of the infarct to be noted, whether it is present in the anterior wall or in the posterior wall or in the lateral wall. Then we see the extent of the infarct, whether it is present in the basal third portion, middle third portion, or apical third portion. And then also look the distribution of infarct, whether it is subendocardial, that is involving less than half the thickness of the wall, or it is transmural if it is involving more than half of the thickness of the wall. One test we can do, that is triphenyl tetrazolium chloride test, which is done to detect the presence of the infarct when it is not seen with the naked eyes. That is less than 4 hours it cannot be seen. So we take the myocardium and we stain it with the we put it in a dye, this dye, and the viable portions they will be stained red, whereas the infarcted portion, here we can see the infarcted portion will not take the stain. It is because of the lack of the lactate dehydrogenase enzyme in the non-viable or the infarct portion. Here we can see the green arrow, it is pointing towards the dark mottling, which means that the infarct is 12 to 24 hours old. And the second black colored arrow, it is showing the yellow softened lesion with a border of hyperemia. And this shows that the infarct is 10 to 14 days old. Now, sampling for the histopathology. In case of normal heart, we take the sections from all the 4 chambers, from the 3 coronaries, from the aorta, and also from the valves. Then, in case if there is any disease of the myocardium, then we have to take that portion also, along with along with what we take in the normal heart. In case of valvular deformities, we take the normal as well as the diseased part of the valve. And similarly, in the coronary artery diseases also, we take from the normal as well as from the narrowed portion of the artery. The spatial stains which we can do for the arteries are elastic Van Giesen, and for the myocardium we can do Messon's trichome. Talking about the systemic examination of the respiratory system, there are 3 main problems in our country: acute respiratory infections, tuberculosis, and chronic obstructive pulmonary diseases. The important history to note down is of smoking, the occupation of the person, any kind of allergies, and concomitant cardiovascular disorders. After we get the heart lung block, we separated the heart. Now we have we have the lungs. They are kept so as their posterior surface is above. We open the larynx, trachea, and bronchus by cutting along their posterior aspect, and we look for the presence of any mucus, blood, aspirated material, pus, or tumor. The pulmonary arteries and the hilar lymph nodes are to be examined, and then we weigh the heart before dissection. Normally, it is 250 to 400 gram. For the dissection of lungs, the rule is we have to palpate before cutting. We slice the lung parallel to the hilar surface from the apex to the base, such that the hilum is placed below. Then if there is any predominant bronchial or any pulmonary artery disease, in that case we have to dissect along the airways or in case of pulmonary artery, along the artery by putting a probe from the hilum towards the pleural surface. Now we will see what to examine in case of lungs. These are the lesions and these are the characteristics or findings which we get. In case of edema of the lungs are heavy, they are wet, and on cutting the lungs, we get the fleshy fluid which oozes out. Then in case of consolidation, we perform the sinking test by placing a piece of lung in water. If it sinks, then it indicates the presence of consolidation. Then look for the nodules, whether they are localized or they are diffused. Their size has to also be noted. Then we have to look for the presence of cavity, cyst, and bulla. The cavity, it has a wall thickness which is more than 0.1 centimeter, and contents are usually air filled. It is sharply demarcated, and in case of cavity, the surrounding parenchyma is diseased. Then we have to look for the cyst. The cyst wall thickness, it is thin walled and lined by respiratory epithelium filled with air or with liquid. In case of bulla, they are 1 centimeter in diameter or more, sharply demarcated. They are subpleural. They can become infected or they can rupture, causing the pneumothorax. This is the cut section of the lung showing the oozing out of the frothy fluid seen in case of pulmonary edema. In this image, there is presence of the nodules all over the lungs, and it is a case of secondary lung cancer. In this image, we can see the consolidation is along the bronchioles, and it is the case of bronchopneumonia. Here, whole of the lobe is consolidated. It is a case of lobar pneumonia. In the first figure, there is a presence of a cavity in the apical region. Also, the surrounding parenchyma is showing caseation. It is a case of tuberculosis. Here we can see the presence of a cyst and a cyst wall. It is a case of hydrated cyst of the lung. Now, in this image, we can see there is a presence of a subpleural bulla and also the honeycomb type of the fibrosis, which is seen in case of end-stage lung diseases like in case of emphysema. These are the references for today's presentation. Thank you, all of you.